Good evening, you're watching Left, Right and Centre. I'm Nidhi Razdan. On the programme, Foreign Minister Salman Khurshid in an exclusive interview on Kasab, Pakistan, and how the Taliban threat is being taken very seriously and why India is worried about China's aggression in the South China Sea. Our other newsmaker tonight will be Murli Manohar Joshi, the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, who hits back at allegations that he was unethical for getting in touch with the CAG while the 2G report was being prepared. Our big debate: has the CAG been discredited by the latest controversy, or is the CAG a target of the Congress's dirty tricks campaign, as the opposition alleges? But let's get straight to our first bit of the program this evening. In his first comprehensive interview since taking over as foreign minister less than a month ago, Salman Khurshid has told NDTV that India is viewing with seriousness the threat from the Pakistani Taliban, which has vowed attacks on India if Ajmal Kasab's body is not handed over. Mr. Khurshid says it's Pakistan's responsibility to ensure that nothing happens from its soil. He also spoke about India's concerns on China's aggression in the South China Sea. Well, joining us now is India's Foreign Minister, Mr. Salman Khurshid, who's already had a rather interesting tenure in the less than 1 month that he's been at his new job. Mr. Khurshid, thank you for joining us today. Like I said, you've only been at this new job for less than a month now. Do you feel it's a refreshing change from what you were doing? We're already seeing you generally wear more suits and ties than kurtas, although today's an exception.
Well, I'm trying to give a clear message that I'm not breaking off from my other engagements. Of course, you have to, in sartorial terms, you have to sometimes make adjustments, which I do. But more than that, I think you have to make adjustments in attitudes and give up some preoccupations, because this is a job in which you have to be extremely careful. You can't afford to make mistakes. You don't make mistakes easily, but even then you just have to be extremely careful, don't make mistakes, because so much turns on what you're doing. So yes, it's different and it's exciting, and it's certainly very challenging. Now we'll have to see how one does.
Well, you've already faced some challenges. There are interesting and challenging things happening in the neighborhood, and I'll start with Pakistan first, because Kasab's hanging just happened a few days ago. What is your assessment of the reaction to his hanging in Pakistan, both officially and even in the media, where everything seems to have been generally quite understated?
Well, I think that as far as Pakistan is concerned, there seems to be a reasonably acceptable level in terms of the response that we've had, and some signals have been, I think, particularly satisfying. It couldn't have been easy for them, and I'm sure that many things that we expect of them are not easy, looking at their ground conditions and the complicated politics that they have in their country. And we certainly understand it, but at the same time we expect that they understand our compulsions and they understand our aspirations and our obligations. And I think it's that balance between us that is called for and necessary. And that's the balance that can allow us to move forward, mend the relationship wherever it's being damaged because of acts either of state actors or non-state actors, and then look at the positive side where we can, as we must, grow towards a more meaningful relationship.
But, you know, I'll come to that a little later in more detail, but there was also this rather contradictory sort of statements from both sides about, you know, whether Pakistan accepted the letter about Kasab's execution. You said on record, the government said, Mr. Shinde also said, that when we sent them the letter first in person with the Deputy High Commissioner, they rejected it. Rahman Malik, the Interior Minister of Pakistan, has denied very categorically. He said that no, we always accepted it. Who do we believe? We're both saying opposite things.
Well, I think that was in process communication that we were offering to you as the media, to keep you posted and informed about what the situation was at that time. It was important for us to underscore that as a country that believes in rule of law and the commitment that we have, including human rights, it was important that the family of the person be informed, and certainly the country, which is what we did. Now, I think to go now into greater detail of whether they accepted or was there an indirect way in which they discovered or the fact that we...
But you stand by the fact that what you said on day one, that they didn't accept the
well,
initial letter.
Well, I would, and I don't want to get into an argument on that, but I think we did what was the best and possible, and we don't go back on what we said that day. The important thing is that the communication was complete. They knew what was going to happen, the consequences, and our concern that the family be informed, and that could only be informed by authorities in Pakistan. To the extent that we could indicate this, we had done so.
Okay, so you're not going back on those words. But why do you think then they contradicted that? What would the possible logic
I think if you read all their statements, I think by and large there is adequate convergence between what we are saying and what they are saying. But this is not an issue on which we should stand on ceremony and on any kind of rigid ego positions. The substance of it is that they were informed, they have accepted that they were informed, and I expect that they thereafter have done what was necessary for them to do, which was to inform the family. We also had an address where we were, it was indicated to us that the family would be available, and we couriered to that address the information that we felt should be shared with them.
Has anyone claimed Kasab's body? He's been buried there in Pune in Yerwada jail, but has anyone come forward at all from the government, from his family, anybody?
Well, not to my knowledge, and I would imagine that that this is consistent with the position that was taken for those people who suffered fatal casualty during the operation. They were also buried in unmarked graves in our country because there were no takers for them. And I assume that since it was the same group and the same operation, one would have thought that they would consistently do whatever they had done in the past. And we haven't had any other contrary information. Certainly we've had no signals whatsoever from any source seeking his body or his remains.
But if his family does seek his body, or Ansar Barni, who's a well-known human rights activist in Pakistan, he said he's willing to take the body from India. Would be willing to consider that? Well,
you know, it's this is a matter that will have to be considered on merits if such a request was formally made. A request made by family or on behalf of a country is one thing, country of the citizen, but a request by any well-meaning third party is quite another. But as I said, if there is a formal request, I'm sure the authorities concerned would examine it as rationally and objectively as possible.
India's #1 news app just got even better. Download NDTV's new app. Fully optimized for retina display. Full screen view. Faster response time. And Sudoku. NDTV's new iPad app. Download now.